This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
And good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Northland Sports Page. It's Brian Prudhomme. It's Dave Cook. It is Saturday, and just like Anthony Barr, Dave Cook has returned from a seemingly multi-year absence. Welcome back, Dave Cook. What's it like to be back in the studio on a Saturday for the first time since, I want to say, October 28th?
Yeah, it's first time since October. The COVID monster got me, and then I had to go do a deal down in the cities that I promised my goddaughter to do.
I was going to say, wasn't it the COVID monster followed by the confirmation monster? But that's a pretty good honor.
100% right. Yeah, I may have gotten in trouble at the confirmation. I may have been a little bit too chatty, but that's all right.
Shocking.
Yeah, right.
How did that happen?
Well, there was a lot of kids that were going up for confirmation, Brian, and my mind can wander. I know that you are not aware of that yet.
No, not since October anyway.
And so I may have started commenting on stuff to my goddaughter, and I don't know how many times she said, "You got to be quiet. We're in church." I heard, but so here's what I told. She gave me one line to say, and that's it, right?
Okay.
So
which was? Do you remember?
Yes, it was. Bishop, please accept Therese for confirmation.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So I said, kid, you can't give me just one line. I need more than that. And she said, no, that's all you got. I said, I don't know if that's true. We're going to figure something out. She's like, don't figure anything out.
So you ad-libbed to a bishop?
Well, I'll tell you the whole story.
That takes
because
cojones.
I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you up there and I'm going to turn around and announce you to everybody. And she said, you can't do that. And I said, you know how this is supposed to be memorable for you? And she said, yeah. I said, what if I go ahead and make it memorable for everybody?
Well, and how many times have we said when we've talked about sports on this show, because we will do that at some point, memorable doesn't have to mean positive.
Great.
You were going to make it memorable for her no matter what.
So here's the thing I want you to watch in the future. So if you're ever in a confirmation or in something where somebody has to be presented, I want you to watch the hand placement of the person who's presenting. Because there had to have been 50 or 70 different ways people put their hands. It's supposed to be on the
shoulder, isn't it?
Oh, we had shoulders. We had one mom who had her kid around
Head,
the neck.
shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
We had one kid we had a kid who was probably boyfriend, girlfriend, had her around the waist. There was a mom that had her hand as big as life in between one kid's shoulders. It was like, are you pushing him along? Does not he want to do this? So it was all kinds of fun watching people going up for confirmation, and I may have done play-by-play for her.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Like,
you always practice that during warm-ups just in case I falter somewhere, so this was good for you.
You'd be surprised how many times I heard this. We are in the front row. You have to shut up.
Now, I got to tell you this, because I'm impressed that the younger of the two of you, the confirmed, if you will, was trying to keep you disciplined, because I was confirmed as well many moons ago, obviously. My sponsor was my now brother-in-law. He wasn't back then. He was my sister's boyfriend. Stayed the part.
He put his hand around your waist?
He didn't. We won't get into that. But there was nobody to tell the other person to show a little maturity and discipline. So we were out of control. So I get the temptation.
Yep.
However, I want you to remember that I was 16. You're not.
I told her that my favorite one, and we'll go on to something else. So her dad is like super religious, right? And that's fine. But we get up there. This is part of the story. We're about to go, and I said, I figured it out. And she said, what? I said, have you ever watched The Lion King?
Oh, no. Were you going to go Simba and hold her up to the church?
And she said, you wouldn't do that. And I said, your dad's in on it.
I would have thought you would have said, don't threaten me with a good time.
Your dad's in on it. And she lost all color in her face. So
I will tell you one
that
thing.
was a good one.
One thing that you just got me to do with all the talk about, don't make noise when you're not supposed to. You just got me to check my phone during that soliloquy you just gave because my phone wasn't in silent mode. So any text or phone calls would have added to the brevity of the show. But you survived. You did it.
I was so useful.
You had to make one line. You had to make one. You didn't want to do just one, but you made the one you were supposed to.
I did.
So she's confirmed all ended well.
We did. There were a couple of stuff that maybe went on in addition. I may have taken a picture during math, and
you sent me a video.
Yeah. Well, that was after, right? I said no, it wasn't.
It wasn't. I was going to say it was as she came back and sat down.
Yep. So there may have been conversations during that about putting my phone away, but I forgot about this one. I don't think I've told you this one. So I found something out.
Maybe we should have started the show earlier because we had the opportunity today, but go ahead.
If you put like a Kleenex, right, and you roll it up so it's, just small enough to go into your breast pocket of your jacket, if you put your iPhone Pro on top of that, the camera sticks out of your pocket and you can tell the person you're going to confirmation with. I've been watching body camera pictures from police, and I think I can film this whole thing.
Wow.
She said, you can't do that.
So does this person
going to tell me no?
Does this person have a younger sibling?
Yes.
Okay, so she's shopping for a different sponsor than you after this for sure.
100%.
You are not being asked back.
100%. It was fun.
So
we had a good time. Her father was not happy with me, but that's okay. We had a good time.
So the individual was confirmed, and I can confirm that Dave Cook's church etiquette left a little something to be desired.
Maybe.
We'll see how he behaves in our chapel of sports here in the Holiday Center. As it's Brian Prudhomme, it's Dave Cook. We are back together. Based on that story, I can't wait to see what version of Dave Cook I get today. But it should be fun because we'll be here for a couple of hours. We'll take it with you till noon. And again, Dave Cook relishing the fact, or perhaps regretting the fact, that he only had one line. He's got one finger up in the air. He's got something to say again.
One last thing.
All right, you're ruining every segue opportunity I had, but go ahead.
She did say to me when we were done, she goes, I am sure the Lord enjoys laughing. And she goes, I'm sure that he was with us enjoying the banter because it was all based around confirmation and being together and having fun and the spirit behind it. So I want to make sure that everybody knows, my behavior maybe wasn't great, but it was all in the right direction.
All right. Was that your first time playing that role?
No.
Dang it.
Old hat.
There went my joke because I thought enjoy it because it's also your last.
Well, that also might be true now.
So we did get one individual confirmed courtesy of Dave Cook. We mentioned he's back just like Anthony Barr. It feels like he spent 7 years here and then suddenly dissipated and found his way back. But Anthony Barr being back with the Vikings, of course, increased the return of a social media meme.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that the reason that Viking fans appreciate Anthony Barr is because of the play that took Aaron Rodgers out of a particular season, that lo and behold, the Vikings won the division relatively easily after that. I would say that Brett Hundley had a lot to do with that as well. But Anthony Barr is known basically for that one play. And I will say that it's unfairly so, partly because Anthony Barr was one of my favorite Vikings, but he was a fairly good defender. We're going to see if he has any gas left in the tank, that's for sure.
It's going to be interesting because the guy who's wearing 55 right now, Andre Carter II, looks a little bit like Anthony Barr.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see if the old sage has anything left in him. Brian Flores is going to use him different than Zim did. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, and it did seem a little bit surprising that they went this far back into the reaches to replace the injured Jordan Hicks. And it's really too bad for Jordan Hicks because he went for a guy that I thought we were going to get a bag of footballs for at the trade deadline to maybe one of their best defenders. But they go back towards Anthony Barr, which I think surprised a lot of people. But I think what you're saying with Brian Flores is true. It makes me wonder if Brian Flores thought Anthony Barr was a toy I would have wanted all along. Now you got it for me.
Yeah, I wonder. So here's something I heard over the last couple of weeks that I wanted to throw out to you. So at the end of the season, Brian Flores is going to have all kinds of head coaching opportunities. Like I think he's going to be the next head coach of New England, right? If you're the Wilfs, do you throw him like $100 less than O'Connell's making to stay? Like O'Connell's a head coach,
I was going to say you're not the first fan or radio personality. Suggest similarly.
I think you almost have to, don't you? Because of the unique style he plays and the players now that you have play that unique style.
Right.
I don't know.
The Vikings are a little bit too known for being one and done. We certainly hope the Brian Flores era in Minnesota doesn't turn out to be that way, but the more he succeeds, we're enjoying it in the moment, but the more that we fear that going forward. But again, with Anthony Barr, we'll see. We'll see how much he actually plays if he does tomorrow night. But again, the idea for me with Barr, and it's so unfair, is that he's known basically for that one play. And I saw it on social media. I saw it from Packer fans. It's good to know they still exist because at 3-6, they've been awfully quiet. But it made me wonder who else in sports is known fairly or unfairly for one play. And you and I had fun this week talking about that.
Yeah, I think, and I think the best explanation for this that I can give people that are just sports fans, because you'll know who this person is because of the one play, and we talked about him this morning, Dwight Clark.
Right.
The catch. And he was a decent wide receiver for the 49ers, but you remember him for the catch.
Absolutely. And in fact, Dave Hoops brought him up on last week's show, and he's a guy without that play I don't think it's brought up really anywhere, including in San Francisco. But it was one of the most memorable plays in the history of football. You want to talk Vikings in San Francisco. Obviously, the Dwight Clark catch wasn't against the Vikings, but when I think of the Niners, I think of a Viking play. I mentioned it to you 10 minutes before we started today. Who the heck knows who Greg Lewis is if he doesn't make the one play in the 2009 home opener featuring Brett Favre?
100% agree. Greg Lewis is in Vikings lore because of that. 100%.
So those are some of the fair ones because they really didn't do a whole lot else. Now, are there statistics behind them and other teams behind them? Yes. But that marquee moment is so far above anything else that it makes sense. There are others that you say this moment didn't define them until media or society let it. Bill Buckner leads that off for me.
Yeah, Billy Buckner is like that. How about a non-player? How about the kid that was watching the Cubs game in the playoffs who pulled the ball out
Steve
of
Bartman?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how he even interviews for anything. That's what you and I do for a living. If you get a resume that says anything Bartman, aren't you like, I wonder if this.
I think he interviews under the name John Smith. I think the Witness Protection Program has a big job 100%.
There. 100%. But the one you made fun of me of is the big forward for the Timberwolves who made the steal against Denver.
Well, because it's a way that you and I play password. We always talk about memorable games and memorable moments. And you say, Wolves forward guy, steal in the corner. And I say, Taj Gibson. And you go, yes, that's what I'm looking for.
That guy.
So these one play things might be fun for Dave and I specifically because we might play clue or password to get to them. But there are Minnesota and there are national plays that without that play, that guy doesn't exist. And it may not be fair at all. That's the point.
Well, one of them that sticks in my head, and I think it's going to be what he's known for forever, is Vontaze Burfict completely going headhunting against Antonio Brown,
right,
and knocking him out. And frankly, I still believe changed his personality and changed the arc of his career, because Antonio Brown went from being that guy everybody wanted to who in the world is this knucklehead? To
the guy that doesn't know what he wants or what day it is.
Almost immediately,
right
after that shot to the head. Burfict's always going to be the guy that ended that arc, the Hall of Fame arc.
Well, and what about the different way that a fan base can view it? Because if you're a Bengal fan, you might say, well, Vontaze Burfict was one of the hardest hitting defenders we had. If you're a fan of anybody else, you go, yeah, but it was dirty as can be. I think about the way that different things are looked at because you look at Dallas and they worship so many of their players with a rich, rich history. Drew Pearson is a big deal to them. Drew Pearson is a big deal here for the wrong reasons.
Yep, same play.
Right.
But yes, how about this one? I'm going to use one word for an NFL football player, and I'm going to see if you say the same thing I do. Bo Jackson.
Running over Brian Bosworth.
Running over Brian Bosworth at 100 miles an hour.
Because I was going to say, if it's not running over Brian Bosworth, it's the play where you literally saw Bo's career end.
Yep.
With the way that his hip turned and the rest of the body didn't, you went, that can't be good.
Yep, the Bosworth play. And then let's go into baseball with it. And I say Bo Jackson, and which play is it?
The absolute hose from the outfield that gets to home plate or third base in the air. Which one do you have?
The
or it's the leadoff home run in the All-Star game.
The All-Star game catch when he ran up the wall and kept running on the wall.
That's a good one as well.
Yep. No, Bo was a special athlete, and yeah, we have a bunch of stories. But when I say Bo Jackson football, it's him running over Boz.
Yep. Absolutely, it is. But you think of baseball, and so many careers are defined by big moments. You think of Kirk Gibson, and everybody knows the Dodgers home run in '88. But we've got listeners that might be in the UP area or from that area, and you go, wait a minute, Kirk Gibson was a darn good Tiger. And you're right. Is it possible that a great moment takes away from the rest of your career? We certainly know that a negative one does, but does a great moment say, well, you're that guy? Yes, but I'm also all of this as well.
So many people will tell you that it's an exclamation point at the end. But I wonder sometimes if you're right, that golden moment, or frankly, the opposite moment, because Eck was on the mound.
Right.
Right?
I told you, besides Mariano, Dennis Eckersley is the best closer of my lifetime. And instead, a lot of people remember that one pitch.
Yeah, that's
the highlight
true.
that he's shown in most often. He's on the negative end of a play.
Yep. And so I think that you're right, because Kirk Gibson was so that's about the time I got into sports, right? And my best friend
but not 1988. Kirk Gibson, right, Detroit lore. Yes.
My best friend's family was from Detroit. And so I had to listen to how good Kirk Gibson was. And now I was a baseball fan, right? So I'd flick his card over, and it was 275, 25 doubles, 23 home runs, 88 RBIs, and 20 stolen bases. I'm like, well, yeah, he's all right, but let's take.
But back then, you're saying he's all right.
Yeah.
Today, we'd say, talk about a 5-tool player.
Yeah, he'd be. How much would he be worth? But yeah. I remember telling Jeff, let's take that guy off the Mount Rushmore of Detroit Tiger players.
Yeah,
because he's all right, but he's not the mechanical man. He's not Greenberg. He's not, picking out all. He's not Denny McLain, right?
I was going to say, you want to go Tiger lore, we would go a long ways before Kirk Gibson gets mentioned, but he was still plenty good. He shouldn't be remembered for one home run as a Dodger.
Yep.
Now, it was a phenomenal Dodgers season, without question, and he's revered by the Dodgers for good reason. But I'll tell you what, it's World Series heroics that he's revered for. In Minnesota, did we forget to do that? Because I look at 1991, and everybody says Jack Morris, Kirby Puckett. And yes, they absolutely took Game 6 and 7 essentially into their own hands. And yes, all Gene Larkin had to do was elevate the ball to win it. But gosh darn it, he did it, and nobody talks about him ever. Gene Larkin actually should be remembered for one play and isn't. Is that a different category?
It is, because you just mentioned some other people that would be really interesting to talk about in Twins lore. I mean, Puckett's top 3 at minimum.
Yeah.
What's his moment?
Game 6.
The catch,
the entire
or the home
game,
run?
The entire game because of that.
You got to pick a
moment. Well, then you got to go with the home run, because that's what technically won it. Now you can say that the catch saved it to get you to that winning moment, because it could have been a much different score, but you break a tie game and walk them off. That's got to be it.
That's probably it. I agree, but I think that's not 100%. Like you said, I think it's 60-40. But, okay, so I'm going to throw some other names at you, because this is our wheelhouse, right?
Right. It's fun.
Gladden.
For the broken bat double or for scoring the game-winning run? Because that's what I picture when I see him. Or is it the grand slam in Game 1 against St. Louis? See, but that's because I'm a Minnesota sports nerd. I could give you more than one play for a lot of these guys, but on a national level or even a casual level, there's one play.
It's the hands up in the air.
I was going to say, from the look on your face, maybe I didn't get it. But yeah, it is celebrating Larkin and scoring.
I was going to use the exact analogy or the exact conversation you had. There's difference in my head versus what's common sports. My memory of Gladden is starting the triple play during the middle of that season when he pulled the ball off the fence, the plexiglass, and it looked like to the guy on third, it looked like the ball went past him because it was glass. And he threw the ball into third for the out, and then they threw it across to the guy to first, because the guy at first had already wrapped around shortstop for the outfield first base triple play.
Okay, you had way too many positions in there, but somehow I followed what you were saying.
Yes.
But you ended it with plays at first base. Ken Herbeck is known for a million things in our area.
Known for one.
If you ask Atlanta Braves fans, what does Ken Herbeck mean? All he did was go WWE or WWF back then on Ron Gant. That's probably nationally what he's remembered for, and shouldn't be. But again, Minnesota Sports Nerd says that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what it is. So is Chuck Knobloch remembered for the fake more than anything else?
In Minnesota, yes. Nationally, I think he's remembered for the yips, not being able to throw to first base. And that was too many plays, not one.
So here's the question. Is he also remembered more for an incident than he is for a play on the field? Is he battery gate? When the Twins fans decided a great idea would be to start throwing batteries
as a Kansas City Royal playing in left field, of all the weirdness of Chuck Knobloch's career, that may take the cake. But who else do you have for one play? Because we talked about unfairly Stephon Diggs may be looked at that way because he caps off the Minneapolis Miracle. But he was really good here and is really good in Buffalo. There's no way that should be how that career is remembered.
How about Brett Favre?
Which one? Which interception?
Right, but the interception as a Minnesota Viking fan, and also because of the stage, such a big play. Isn't it the interception to go to the Super Bowl?
Well, and how about the fact that I said which interception? This is probably a top 5 quarterback of all time. And how you want to remember him, you say which interception. And, of course, I say that because of the irony of the fact that his last pass as a Packer was picked. His last pass as a Jet was picked. his last meaningful pass as a Viking was picked.
Yeah, that's 100% true. What about Kickergate in Minnesota? I mean, we've had all these.
Gary's remembered wrong. Blair's remembered wrong. You look at Blair Walsh specifically because I think about what I said on Time for Two More last weekend about how anytime it's Greg Joseph from over 45 now, I can't look. Blair Walsh in his early years is exactly what you want right now.
Yep.
Because the Vikings, granted, they're red hot, but they have no issue getting inside the 35, but not by enough to make a field goal comfortable with Greg Joseph. Blair Walsh, let's say 2012 Blair Walsh, would have flourished on this team and we would have loved him. And for the most part of Blair Walsh's career, you should have loved him.
Yep.
But instead, he shanks against Seattle and then kind of got the yips after that and was run out of town. I will argue in that Seattle game, he's also the only reason they scored at all until that miss. Gary Anderson, let's just face it, it was a perfect season minus one kick, and the one kick defined him.
So we talked about Puckett. Now let's look at some of the all-time Vikings. What's Randy Moss's moment?
Which catch against Green Bay?
Or is it Dallas?
Right.
Or is it the flip to Mo?
But I feel like we're deferring from what the topic is. We're discovering how many people aren't known for just one play. We're trying to focus on the ones that are.
Only one play.
Because I think of sports we haven't gone to yet. We did go to basketball briefly with Taj Gibson. I want to go to hockey because I mentioned Richard Park. If Richard Park doesn't win Game 6 against Colorado in the Wild's earliest of playoff victories, first of all, there is no Game 7, so there is no Andrew Brunette heroics. But I don't know if there is Richard Park in any kind of legacy without that Game 6 goal. And I guarantee you there might be listeners out there going, I didn't even know who Richard Park is till you just brought up that goal.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I told you that. So as the biggest Gopher fan that you probably know, well, maybe I'm up there anyway. And as a biggest Thomas Vanek fan as I am, I remember Thomas Vanek for only one reason as an NHL player. And he had all kinds of moments, right? He had a really good NHL career. But the one moment is when he skated over to the bench and stood there instead of back checking. And we gave up a goal. I'll always remember, why is this person in the NHL anymore?
Right. And he wasn't for a whole lot longer, at least not in Minnesota. I'm going to go off kilter a little bit with hockey because last weekend I mentioned John Carlson, Dave Hoops, and I ended up talking about the Miracle on Ice because I asked a question about the best upset that you witnessed either on TV or in person. And I was alive, but I was under the age of 1 when the Miracle on Ice happened. John and Dave were in a different light, so they got a chance to watch it and absorb it. Does anybody truly know in a certain age bracket who Mike Eruzione is without that game?
Oh, 100% no. You can list almost every player in that team.
Right.
And who's Jim Craig?
Right.
Right?
Well, without the movie release, we could go who knows how many of them. But Eruzione for sure is just up on a pedestal where if you're not above the casual level, you got to think pretty hard.
Yeah, you got to work for almost all those guys.
Right.
Who don't you have to work for? Broughton, Ken Morrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
true.
sure people are
Herb
yelling
Brooks. Herb Brooks.
Right. I'm sure people are yelling at their radio, and that's fine, but off the cuff. But there are a number of other players who have had these great careers, and you remember them for a moment. What's Jeter's moment?
The backhanded flip to get the other Giambi at home plate.
That's right. I mean, and that's what he'll always be remembered for, right? In Duluth, what's Darryl Strawberry remembered for?
Playing for the St. Paul Saints.
How about standing at the roof of the St. Paul Saints Stadium and hitting the ball like a golf ball 500 feet?
Right. But what about silly moments or, odd moments that get memories as well? Because I'll never forget that one of the first interviews I got to do as a play-by-play guy for UMD basketball back at the turn of the century, which is just a fun phrase to use. But hear me out. I was a basketball play-by-play guy, and I got to interview Don Beebe.
Yeah.
And you might say, what's Don Beebe doing in a basketball sense? Well, Don Beebe's brother was the coach of UMD's opponent that night. And instead of getting the coach, I recognized Don Beebe across the gym, and I said, do you mind talking to me about some things? And he goes, full disclosure, he goes, how the heck did you know who I was? Nobody else had any idea who I was. But what's Don Beebe known for? The strip of Leon Lett in the Super Bowl, which his team got blown out. And Leon Lett is known for how many terrible plays, who was a great offensive lineman in his career.
Leon Lett was a player. That's for sure. But, I mean, that's an interesting one, Brian, because defensive ends make plays all the time. Think about what's Michael Strahan known for.
A gap in his teeth.
Okay, there's
the
that.
Brett Favre sitting down sack.
Brett Favre sitting down sack to give him the record, right? And so, like, what's William the Refrigerator Perry's moment?
Scoring in the Super Bowl.
Scoring in the Super Bowl.
I feel like this is a quiz that I'm doing really, really well on.
Because they all have one moment.
Yeah.
Right? They have this moment that sticks out. And these players are Hall of Fame or borderline Hall of Fame players.
Right.
But there's that moment.
I'm going to give you a moment between two players where one you're going to say he's known for a million things, and the other one you're going to say, yep, it's that moment. Robin Ventura and Nolan Ryan.
Yep.
Nolan Ryan is known for a million things. Robin Ventura is probably known for one, and Robin Ventura had a very serviceable career.
How about, in the same vein, how about Michael Jordan's winning shot that has the guy from Cleveland kind of falling underneath
Craig
him?
Elo.
Yeah.
Or the winner over the Jazz that was basically Michael's last meaningful shot. I believe that was Brian Russell.
Yeah, having that poster. Maybe it's the poster that keeps it in your mind some as well. I mean, that could very well be.
How about if I said Steve Lyons? Pretty good announcer. Do you remember what he's known for?
I do, for pulling his pants down.
I was going to say,
base.
keeping your pants up on a baseball field are pretty important ideas.
On purpose. That's the thing.
Right.
He did it on purpose.
How about somebody like Alexi Casilla? Do you even know what the moment is? Now, game 163, the Twins win it.
Yeah.
Carlos Gomez comes hauling around third, but who hit him in? Yep. Didn't do much else as a Twin, but that was a big moment. Alexi Casilla, for me, kind of goes into that Gene Larkin ilk. And all I think of with Gene Larkin is if Gene doesn't pinch hit, I think it's supposed to be Jarvis Brown hitting for the Twins in that spot. People usually don't know who Jarvis Brown is. Can you imagine if he's supposed to, here, go win the 91 World Series? Even the biggest Twins fans are going, who the bleep is this guy?
He'd have had to put a bunt down and try to beat
Right.
it. Yeah, 100%. No, but I mean, think of some of the people that had an opportunity to have that moment too. Like Inge in that same game where
probably got hit by a pitch.
But if he gets plunked, they win. Like, Detroit wins if he gets hit.
Well, and I believe the winning pitcher for the Twins in that game, somebody Google it for me, but I swear it was Bobby Keppel for the Twins.
Geez, how about that for a name?
I was going to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, the name pull Brian is able to do.
Tell me something else that he did. Now, there have to be obvious ones that we're missing.
Of course there are.
Like, Barry Sanders is a documentary coming out this coming week before the holiday. I think of the one where he's turning around Harlan Barnett for the Patriots about 3 or 4 different times, trying to figure out an angle to tackle him.
Yeah, the thing about Barry is you can take a moment, but you should really, for a young football player, take about 15 minutes and just show the highlights, right?
Right.
But how about Kellen Winslow? My favorite player as a kid, on my favorite team as a kid, by the way, before the Vikings became that, was the Chargers, Eric Coryell.
Right.
Kellen Winslow is coming off the field supported by 5 different people because he played every snap in a double overtime win.
Right.
And, and he was a great tight end, a Hall of Fame tight end. But that's the moment.
How about Franco Harris? Amazing career.
Yeah.
You see one play over and over. David Tyree, not such an amazing career, but you definitely see one play over and over. It's amazing what the stage does for it.
It is fascinating when you think about all these different plays that have happened. All, and like you said, we didn't touch on a whole lot of basketball. I mean, there's a lot of basketball stuff is so many of the specials are.
Well, and so many of them moments. Are NCAA tournament games. I love during the NCAA tournament when they have their video montage to intro or outro the tournament, and they show so many, and you go, I remember that, I remember that, I remember that.
But I think with NBA players, especially the superstars, I can use their names, and most of those things are going to be in skills competitions, like Larry Bird.
Yeah. The 3-point competition just annihilating everybody.
Dominique.
Where he came into the locker room that day and said, who's finishing second?
Yeah, Dominique.
Dominique taking off from the free throw line.
Taking off from the first time anybody saw
Vince Carter, D. Brown doing the I'm blinding myself and I'm dunking.
How about the Superman shirt after the one? So, I mean, a lot of things in the NBA, we get a chance to see those superstars show off their skill set, right? But, I mean, there's other things. What about Westbrook in the NCAA tournament, right? Just absolutely winning that basketball game for UCLA at the end.
Tyus Edney. How about when NCAA tournament, UCLA went on to win it with the O'Bannon brothers, but without Tyus Edney, they don't get out of round 1.
What if we do women's NCAA basketball, and I say Janet McCarville?
Yeah, or which Caitlin Clark shot from last year are you going to remember?
Yep. So I think it's fun to look back at your teams. Like, you and I do so much high school and Division III college. I mean, there's so many moments in high school hockey that are that minute, right? And whether or not they're good plays or great plays, things that absolutely stick out in our minds and in other people's minds as well.
I want to know what Anthony Barr thinks about this, because the whole topic stemmed from him. Because, again, he's back with the Vikings, and so many who didn't know enough about him as a Viking are going to focus on the injury to Aaron Rodgers and the meme and the play and what have you. So we thought about, how do you define different athletes by one play? And I found it interesting how this topic morphed into something else, because it started for me of, let's pick on a guy that without a play probably doesn't exist in anybody's conversation. And it kind of changed to, you can name some of the best known athletes and still pin one play to them, at least that the nation looks at. Now, again, we're too nerdy and we came up with 7 or 8. Yep. But you look at, what does the nation think when you say player X? And we found it. But I'd love to know what Anthony Barr thinks that he became a topic that morphed into Janet McCarville. Don't tell me that the Northland Sports Page doesn't play word association in some way, shape, or form. We bump out with little 3-dog night because it's all about one. Make one play. We hope the Vikings make one play more than the Broncos on Sunday. We'll talk to Dave Hoops about it. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Northland Sports Page. It does take 2 Daves to get through this segment. Dave Cook is with me. Dave Hoops will be right around the corner. I'm Brian Prudhomme. Very excited to have both Daves back with me. We were so excited about our opening topic with what one play defines a certain player, whether they're well-known or not. We kind of botched that last name we were bringing up. We got so excited, we morphed Janet Carbonin and Janelle McCarville into one player. So pick which one you want to go with. But as far as we know, Janet McCarville doesn't exist. So we apologize for that. But our great sponsors exist. We want to give them some love right away.
Yeah, sorry about that, Brian. Our
sponsors, I bought into it. No big deal.
Our sponsors list continues to grow, and we want to welcome Mike Regan from the Christensen Group Insurance Company. He's jumped on board the football show. We want to make sure that everybody takes a look at him for your insurance needs.
Absolutely. One of the best, not just insurance agents, but one of the best people I know. Thank you, Mike Regan, for joining the family.
Absolutely. Comfort Systems, Kohler Hyundai and Kohler Toyota, Pure B Resort, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Mont Royal Bottle Shop, Avenue 45, Sammy's Pizza, Advantage Emblem, Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. The Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, at Proctor, Two Harbors, Blackwater, and Tavern on the Hill. OAR Holdings, Hoops Brewing, and Arugula Architecture Studio.
For those that don't see things, because radio is not a visual medium, so I don't know how any of you see the show, but it's always tough in radio when you have to cough or swallow or all of the above. And kudos to Dave Cook for pushing on through the sponsors. As you could tell, he was on the cusp of having a bad vocal moment. Happens to me a lot in this studio, happens to me a lot during our games as well. John Carlson is probably the best at it because he leaves no stone unturned when it comes to alerting you that he needs to cough. He looks like a third base coach telling you to turn his mic off, please, but it's always harder to do mid-sentence. So we'll give one Dave a break, and I'll go right to the other. Dave Hoops of Hoops Brewing is on the phone with us once again. Dave, good morning, sir.
Good morning, guys. Excellent show so far.
Good morning to you, and thank you. Now, tell us how many we missed, because I think people are going to get interactive with us, and I don't take it as a slight if we miss things that, you know, are the one play that defines a player. But we immediately got social media messages talking about Ontario Smith and the Wizinator. Tell you what, if you've got more, tweet them at us, at NSPFan1065. But Dave Hoops, you've got the floor. What did you think of for players that are defined fairly or unfairly by one play?
No, I think you guys did great. I was actually stringing lights, so I was on a ladder. So I don't have a whole bunch right at my fingertips. I'm sorry, but I was listening.
No, it's okay. That's always a good feeling that we did well. And with you on a ladder stringing lights, it's the season for that with Christmas City Parade last night, etc. And all I picture when you say that is Clark Griswold doing the same thing. So I'm glad to hear that you're safely with us and off the ladder.
Well, we get it going on Tuesday. We get all our Christmas trees down at the brewery and everything, and we have everything up and running by Thanksgiving night when people like to go out after turkey. So I'm planning for all that.
I'm glad you mentioned both holidays. So give us the timeline for those that are fascinated by every Hoops Brewing beer that comes out for the holidays, because Thanksgiving is, just a handful of days away. It's this coming Thursday. So Cranfest should be available. And then I believe Cherry Ale, the last I saw was December 9th. Is that still on schedule?
Yeah, 100%. I got to go on the lift the other day, and I fed some to Bailey on there, the Cranfest, which is now on tap. And it is beautifully reddish pink, and it just screams for a little bit of turkey, a little bit of a sip, back and forth. And then, yes, cherry is 12.25 is December 9th. But next week, we've all been waiting, Blueberry Pale Ale. It'll be out. So
I am excited.
That little segue there.
Yeah, very much so. I am excited for that one, too. You mentioned the lift. I want to give some love to WDIO, our partners there, and Bailey Warfield is the Bailey that you mentioned. And the lift is exactly that. I kind of feel like it's an optimistic, uplifting community show. And who better to have on that than you? Because we always say the ray of sunshine, Mr. Optimist, that we need on this show is you. So talk a little bit about your experience and conversation on the lift this week.
Oh, well, thanks. She's a good friend. She's come down to the brewery a bunch of times, but she had me up at the studio, and I brought in a bunch of fruit beers, 4 different versions, and then talked about how beers would pair with Thanksgiving fare and what works with what. And I might have talked about pale ale, stout as well. But the crowd pleaser was definitely Cranfest. And, yeah, she's a delight. Just a great, great girl who does an awesome job on her show.
She really is fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, both of these teams that are going to battle tomorrow have played some fantastic football recently, the Vikings and the Broncos. You are someone who has declared himself as a fan of both. I would imagine tomorrow, though, the purple allegiance is obvious. And what do you expect?
Well, I am a fan of both. And, it's been a down season, until it wasn't, as I told you, for both. And now we've got 3 wins in a row for Denver with Russ playing like a serviceable quarterback. I think it's going to be a really good game, but I think our defense is going to be the X factor, not Josh so much. Although I'm going to predict 150 yards on the ground. There you go. There's my major prediction. No, total for the Vikings.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were going for Dobbs too. I thought, well, our receivers are not getting any separation if he's got to run for 150. But go ahead.
Goodness gracious!
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Dave. No, I'm saying as a team.
I've been trying to get back in the groove here, Dave, and you sat me back in the chair. I almost flipped over. So I got to get back in the groove for the studio before you say stuff like that. Jeez.
Well, it's going to be a good game up in Mile High. Hopefully it'll be cold out.
I was going to say, let's all go out on a limb and just say it's a Vikings game. It'll be 1 score. Which direction? Who knows? Go ahead.
Exactly. Hey, it's time to do some questions, Dave. I've been chomping at the bit for this for a couple of weeks because one of the more interesting things that's happened over the past, couple of football seasons is this goofy sign stealing thing that's going on in Michigan, right? So scandals are a thing that happen in our country and in our culture all the time. And I'm wondering, Dave, I'm going to take it in sports, and I'll let you get out of sports too. But what's the most interesting scandal that you can remember that stick out for you?
Well, didn't Brian bring it up? The Wizinator? I mean, that's classic if we're talking sports right now.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Wow, this is really an all-encompassing question because I wasn't around for it, but in my lifetime, because of the movies and TV shows, I've been fascinated, good and bad, by the Watergate scandal. If I go outside of sports,
well, we're going to talk about that one in a bit.
The sports scandal, I think that was most fascinating to me. I wanted to start with steroids because what was it? The Mitchell report that was a big deal at that time. But then I think the whole thing with the Astros was fascinating to me of what's going to happen. People lost their jobs, but were they actually going to have a World Series crown taken away from them? We can argue that Rob Manfred didn't do enough, and if you argue that, I 100% agree with you. But I was curious how that was going to be handled.
So the silliness of this Michigan thing brought me immediately to the flattening the ball in New England. Right?
Yes, Deflategate.
But then I went serious for a second. And what about Muhammad Ali saying no to the Vietnam War and giving up his title and going to jail to serve his time because of his faith and belief or faith in his beliefs? And what a scandal that was at the moment. And now we look back at it as a point of pride.
Absolutely. Can I add one more for those of you that might like the 30 for 30 television series? Because if you haven't seen this one, do it. Don't forget the New York Islanders had basically a fake owner for a while who convinced the world that he was loaded with the financial resources to own a team, and he was a nobody, and the sports world bought it for a while.
Didn't we have that for like 10 seconds with the Vikings? Didn't like Tom Clancy own it with?
Right. But at least we know Tom Clancy had the financial resources. I thought you were going to say, don't we have that now with the poll ads? But
all
go
right,
ahead.
so here's one thing that I think all Duluth people should, or at least one side of the city is going to like. How about the scandal that is the overtime with Apple Valley that East should have won because there was a goal waved off?
Since you used the word fascinated, I'll agree with you. Do I enjoy that one? No, because I'll tell you this, that Matt Latour, and this story has been told many times, Matt Latour supposedly tipped Dylan Mills' shot, and it did go in. And Matt Latour, back then, certainly, haven't seen him for a while, he has the cleanest vocabulary of anybody that I went to school with. And word is that he came back to the bench and said, I bleep and scored. Why are we still playing? If he dropped one of those, he scored.
He scored. Now, outside of the sports world, I told you this question was going to get a little bit long because this really is the Michigan versus Watergate, question, right? Because one's a little silly and one's the most important scandal, maybe ever. But I want to go back a little ways and talk about the one that really is interesting to me is the murder of Abe Lincoln, right? Because apparently the guy that they got was frankly a stoolie, not unlike, he was sent there. He did the deal, but that he was kind of fooled in what was going to happen, not unlike the Kennedy assassination, right? Is one of the greatest scandals of all time, the Warren Commission.
I think it could be. That's a little too deep for me. I think it's fun in a weird way because it's become a sports cliche when we list all the things that are wrong with our teams and then we end it with, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Yeah. But other than that, I'm not going to explore that topic too much. It's too rich for my blood. Go ahead, Dave.
Dave, let me jump back in. Can I for a second?
By all means.
Yeah, well, I wasn't thinking on my feet too well. Really quickly, though, I'd like to add the entire home run gate. I got to watch a lot of the Barry Bonds homers and whether those should be on the list. I really would like to mention that. And then I think for me, the biggest, it's a social commentary, Chadgate, whatever, the election between
Gore Bush.
Oh my gosh,
the hanging
that's a
Chads,
great one.
yeah.
But I also want to mention that our country could really look at classy behavior and handshakes and between two candidates roughing, really fighting for something, and they acted like grown-ups. I remember that really well. All
right, so let's take a break to something a little lighter. So happy birthday to the granddaughter today. Soph's got the now she's not, it's today, but we're celebrating it today. And they have a tradition called Yes Day. So pretty much whatever she wants within reason, the answer is just yes today.
Wow,
right?
She's not married.
Right. So, yeah, I told her we needed to be a little bit more Minnesota and have Depends Day. Okay, that's great. It depends on this. But I want to know, guys, what is your favorite birthday tradition? Whether or not it's something you did when you were a kid or what you do now.
Well, Dave Hoops, I'm going to let you go first. But first off, I was snickering to myself because I'd never heard Depends Day before, and I thought that was something only nursing homes celebrate. But go ahead.
That's why I had to add that bit.
Well, it's he's long retired, so there won't be any problem here. But when I was younger, for a while, I thought I was told that the fireworks were in my honor, and I was too young to understand that was a farce, 4th of July and all.
I love that.
But my favorite tradition, every year we would have a giant family reunion /party /lawn get-together, many people, and the chief of police in the unnamed city that I'm not going to mention would show up around 9 o'clock with the squad car completely full of confiscated fireworks. And they would go right into blowing them all off. And eventually I realized they weren't for me. But the tradition of Chief Unnamed showing up to bring those every year when it was hard to get fireworks when I was that age. That was a great tradition until he retired.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's one of the many advantages to you having a national holiday for a birthday. Whether or not those are simpatico or just coincidence, we can debate forever. My tradition is a little more simple because I didn't have very many. And I know we have a lot of great sponsors. And I'll tell you what, if this place still existed, I might hit it up to be a sponsor as well. Because, yes, I'm an East grad, which makes me a cake eater by nickname. But I'm also a cake eater by digestive choice. And I really enjoyed patty cake cakes as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And I had awesome decor on all my birthday cakes, whatever I was into that year. I know I had a cake with Kirby Puckett. I know I had a cake with Larry Bird. I'm fairly certain I had a cake with something Vikings. I don't know what purple frosting tasted like. But I always, you think about it now as an adult and you say, that looks too good. I don't want to eat it. It's too pretty. As a cake eater, I dove into it. But looking back, I'm like, man, I'm glad we took pictures of those cakes because those were awesome.
So that I have one that I want to add, but you when you said looking back on something I did as a kid, you remember Shakey's?
Yeah.
Like that was the birthday tradition. Hey, we used to do what we called birthday fairy. And so the kids would go to sleep and Dana and I would go in and we would absolutely trash their room with stuff, with crepe paper and all kinds of stuff. And when the kids woke up and they could hardly get out of their room because it looked like somebody made a spider web, they were so psyched up because the birthday fairy had come. So that was always fun.
That's pretty good. Do you have more or is that it for today?
No, I do have one more, but I don't know what kind of time frame we have.
If you put the pedal down, we can do it.
All right. So coaching is an interesting thing, and hopefully Steve Patosha is listening and our rest of our coaching friends. Dave Hoops, what's one unique coaching trait that you value?
Well, when I was running high school track, my coach, Coach Linder, he had a great mustache. I should mismention that because it was that time Burt Reynolds would have rolled over. But that's a side note. But Coach Linder believed in, participating with his athletes. Now, he was a great motivator. He was a great talker, everything else. But he would go out there and run wind sprints with us to the point where, we were striving to keep up with him. And so I like a whole go see him, go do him type of coach. Don't just say, do. And Coach Linder was still probably my greatest coach to this day.
I'm going to agree with that because I think where I was coming from was kind of in the same idea because I was going to say relatability. I like the coach that every once in a while kind of morphs into the kid or the athlete. As good as Tom Kelly was with the Twins, looking back, I guess I didn't like that he sat in the dugout and let the players do all the celebrating. I like the coach that shows the emotion and the joy and sometimes the sadness right with the kids. So I like to see the coaches that get just as fired up as the players are. Kevin O'Connell right now, when they do mic'd up and different things on the Vikings Entertainment Network, which we'll talk to Tatum Everett about a little after 11, is a joy to watch those clips because how animated he gets. It's fun because it sees the passion come to life.
So my offensive line coach when I was playing was an old Marine.
That's the one that grabbed you by the face mask?
Yep. But he was the guy that kind of learned how to motivate you. And so for me, I didn't want to be called out in front of other people, right? He did a very nice job of pulling you aside, cursing, laughing, and telling you what you did wrong, and then get you back out there. And if you did it wrong again, that's when you got the face mask pull. But if you did it right, he threw so many curses at you, and then he'd pat you on the back that it was, motivated you to know, and you wanted that, right?
I was going to say, that is running the emotional spectrum, the relationship spectrum, all in a 5-minute exchange. Dave Hoops, quick segue to close because I want to talk more about the brewery. Dave Cook talked about birthday traditions. My new one might be going to Hoops Brewing every time I have a birthday. It's a great place to party. Tell us more about what we can do down there this weekend and beyond.
Well, I mentioned that it's going to be Thanksgiving. Thank you. I'll be open at 5 o'clock that night to, kind of ring in the Christmas season post Thanksgiving. And we'll go right into next weekend starting our Makers Market. So every Saturday morning into the afternoon, we'll have 7, 8, 9, 10 artisans selling cool stuff. And, of course, we'll be continuing to promote everything ice. That's the best way I could put it, as Bentleyville starts, too. So let's get some snow, I guess. But, yeah, come on down. We're very festive. We're the most Christmassy holiday, beer hall, I would have to say, around here.
It's amazing to me that the most warm-hearted guy I know wants to promote everything ice. But Dave Hoops, you're the best. Let's talk again next week. It's always a joy. Have a good rest of your weekend, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
Absolutely will. That's our guy, Dave Hoops from Hoops Brewing, one of our illustrious sponsors. When we come back, one of the most impactful people in our community. Dave Hoops is one. Dyami Starks is another. He's next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Right back here on the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, little kids in America. Tell you what, one of the guys that has a huge impact on all of the kids in our little corner of America is Mr. Dyami Starks. He's going to join us in just a moment. But before we do that, we'll give a lot of love to Dyami, but we'll give a lot of love to our sponsors as well.
Let's try to get through it this time, huh? We'll start with the OG, the original, the sponsor that kept us going during COVID. If you're looking to do something to your home or your business and you need some assistance, Ryan Arola at Arola Architecture Studio, please go there and talk to him.
The OG.
Hoops Brewing, we just got done talking to Dave. OAR Holdings, Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Sammy's Pizza, the Blackwoods Group, including locations on London Road, in Proctor, in Two Harbors, Blackwater downtown, and Tavern on the Hill, Avenue 45, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Pier B Resort, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Comfort Systems, and Mike Regan, Christensen Group Insurance.
Mike Regan, one of the best friends a guy can make. Same can be said for this guy as we welcome in Dyami Starks. Dyami, I want you to help me because you've done that in so many ways in our lives together. But what's the best way to introduce you in terms of resume? St. Scholastica women's assistant coach, Starks Academy basically founder, director of player development for a team in Iowa. What am I missing? What would you like me to include? And good morning.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again. But, you guys are going to have to put me on payroll to do your job. You guys are the ones who do the intros really well, not me.
That's true. I'll get you a W-4 at the end of the day. How about that?
That works. No, it's basketball. I even struggle with it. I had to change the signature line in my email the other day, figuring out which ones to put on and which ones not to put on. But overall, you guys, I'm coaching. I'm doing what I love to do. I can't complain.
Let's talk about those CSS women for a little bit here. They've got a big game today at 3 o'clock. UW Stevens Point comes to the Rife. This is a team that has struggled in terms of record over recent years, but it's a much more athletic, young, energetic bunch this year. It's fun to watch so far.
Well, listen, as great of a job as Stacey Deidre did, recently inducted in the CSS Hall of Fame, transitioning from the UMAC to the MIAC is a dramatic swing. The UMAC, no knock on some of the higher level teams in it, but the UMAC is not nearly as strong as the MIAC. When you have these academic and athletic powerhouses, transitioning with the personnel that you're used to recruiting, everything changes. So when Jason Schmitz took over the program, we knew it was going to be a bumpy road. And I wasn't there on staff. He was actually doing quite a bit himself. We recently got a full-time assistant position. We have new hire coming in from New Jersey, my guy Gene. He's excellent. We hit the recruiting path pretty hard this past summer. And as I don't know if you guys know, but Division III coaches, they can coach in AAU. So I had Jason coach my 17-year teams. He actually coached Rachel, who's playing for Stevens Point. We're going to see a rematch today. But, hitting the recruiting trail is super important. And as coaches, we all like to say at the college level, we want to give our returning players every chance to be as great as they can be, but we also need to recruit players that are better. And that's just the constant cycle of college basketball. I think this year is our first year where we're actually seeing some of the players that we want coming in. And then obviously, to your point, Brian, allows us to play faster, more dynamic. So we go deep. We play 5 freshmen. So it's going to be an exciting game and exciting next 4 years.
Yeah, it definitely is. You mentioned today with Rachel Hagan coming to town as a member of UW Stevens Point, and you mentioned AAU ball. The St. Scholastica early schedule and, quite frankly, the St. Scholastica team, you have to feel like a proud father of a lot of these kids because Rachel Hagan you helped develop, Ashlyn Gunther, you guys were in Bemidji a week ago, Tyron, Sage Gagnon. How many players that you're seeing, and it's got to be fun to kind of see the fruits of your labor, but at the same time, you're having to beat them now. But this is a tip of the cap to you and basketball in our area.
I appreciate that. Honestly, it's kind of surreal because it's the first generation of kids that I'm seeing go to college. You know, I have, as you guys know, Gianna Neepkins, Grace Kurt. Those are some of the older kids and some of the kids I worked with first. But they didn't play AAU with me. So now I am seeing some of the kids that I've literally coached year-round, traveled the country with an AAU, and now they're living out their dreams playing college basketball. I don't have any words. It's still soaking in for me. But we can talk about that after. We got to kick Rachel's butt tonight first.
That's fair. Challenge accepted. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about signatures, and I've been thinking about. I was talking to some adults about you earlier in the week, and there was two things that you should add to your signature page. The first one is people don't always remember what you said to them, but they remember how you made them feel. Because I think those kids they learn basketball, but they learn passion and they learn all the other stuff from you. The other thing is there's a quote by a gal whose last name is Tauscher, and it's, we worry about what a kid might become tomorrow. We always seem to forget what the kid is today. And it seems to me, for all of the time we've talked about with Starks Academy and all the things you do, you never forget the kid today. Your goal is tomorrow, but you always seem to focus on that kid today. And I said this, Brian, the first time we talked to Dyami over the airs, I'm going to say it again. The guy who makes the most difference to the most kids in our community, we're talking to him on the phone right now.
Man, I don't know how to follow up that one. Next topic?
I want to know, my next question is this. Adults out there who see what you're doing, right, and are basketball junkies, maybe don't know how to give back. How do they get a hold of you, and how can you help guide them a little bit? Not just the kids, but the adults.
No, of course. And Dave, no, thanks. I was saying that tongue in cheek. With the new endeavors that I have in Iowa, I'm sure we'll get to that in a second. Being a college coach keeps me busy in the winter. And then, but one thing that'll never change is my love for this area, my home, and the kids that are here. It's honestly, I've had a lot of opportunities pop up all over the country, even overseas. I've had opportunities to go back over there and coach and even play still. But there's just a draw here, there's an anchor here, and that will always be there. So whether it's Starks Academy, NYBA, or just, Dyami doing his own thing, I'll always have ties here. So this next year, actually, it's a good question, Dave. This next year, I'm going to launch a new website. It's literally my first and last name, DyamiStarks.com. It's live now, but you can't book anything there. But that's where I'm going to keep everything, because as we pointed out, I'm having a presence in different states and different areas. But I'll always be anchored here. And, NorthlandHoops.com is where you're going to see all of our events. Our annual Winter Hoop Fest, Holiday Hoop Fest, is on December 28th. That's our biggest camp of the year. Parents, drop your kids off. We'll take care of them, teach them some basketball skills, teach them some life skills. I'll always love that camp. And this year I'm going to have our CSS women team help me out a lot. And then just getting involved in different areas like CSS this year. Our players volunteered at Lincoln Park Middle School. So it's just getting our hands in all these different areas in basketball. It just ties it all together. But I'll still just look out for all the different programming that we're doing. NorthlandHoops.com, DyamiStarks.com, and no matter where I end up being, it's always going to be my roots are going to be tethered here.
Absolutely, we love that. Your community impact knows no bounds, and I appreciate that. We talk so much about the local products and how they succeed at the next level. Gianna Neepkins, all the Division III and Division II kids that you've helped hone, that you've actually played against or will play against today. But I want to talk about some of the kids for CSS that you'll see today as well. You talked about the 5 freshmen. I want to talk about somebody who's much older and much more consistent because she's older, perhaps. Is Megan Hurley just the epitome of consistency for your team?
Megan Hurley, the team mom. Megan Hurley is awesome. Now, you want to talk about UMAC versus MIAC. Megan Hurley was recruited to be a UMAC player. Right. And the MIAC has, superbly better athletes, as I just got through saying. So Megan athletically is not going to match up. And we have a joke, actually, in practice, like, you know me, Brian, I'm going to shoot straight at all times. Right. And I told Megan in front of the whole team, I was like, now, is Megan fast? Of course not. She's slow. But she plays fast. Right. She thinks fast. She's always in the right spot. And the kids, the only thing they heard was, Dyami said Megan was slow. So we bring it up all the time as an inside joke. But it was a compliment. It was a compliment because, for her to be a MIAC start, and I'm not kidding, she would start for over half the teams in the MIAC with her basketball IQ and her presence. And she's versatile. She plays multiple positions for us. She's super smart. She's an extension of me and Jason on the floor. She just does everything right, but it's nothing that blows you away. So yeah, without Megan's presence, there is no success. We're not talking about how exciting we're going to play. The freshman would be kind of wayward, and last year we had freshman of the year Lexi.
Right. Lexi Imdek, yeah.
Lexi Imdek. So it's like without Megan, she doesn't give the foundation for these kids to really jump off.
I'll tell you what, your answer makes me feel good that I see the game the right way, because I'll tell you what, if my life is on the line and I need somebody to shoot from the elbow, I'm probably choosing Megan Hurley, but that's just me. Dyami, I want to talk a little bit about Division I women's basketball, because the fact that it is talked about at such a higher level recently is just mind-boggling and fascinating to me, because it's finally the nation is catching on to how good it is. But there's parity this year. Some of the top teams are falling off early. Yeah. UConn has an early loss. Iowa lost at home to K-State this week. Utah got beat. We don't want Gianna to lose, but they got beat by a ranked Baylor team, mind you. But the knowledge of women's basketball throughout the nation is getting better. Minnesota hosts UConn tomorrow. We can pray that they pull an upset. I don't think Gino will let that happen, but the nation is a little bit more infatuated with this sport, aren't they?
Yeah, they absolutely. And I'll tell you this, I think two things can be true. The girls and women's game has never been better than it is now, right? The parity you're talking about, it's no secret. Just basketball across the board in both genders has gotten better, period. It's more skilled, faster, bigger athletes. It's more versatile. There's better coaching. Analytics has changed the game. It's just better. And my buddy Grant McGinnis made a great point about the girls' game specifically. He said, wherever you see great hockey, you're going to see great girls basketball. And it's not, there's exceptions. But what he was saying is like the west suburban area in the metro. So you got your Hopkins, Minnetonkas, all those schools over there.
Right.
They're great at hockey. And obviously that means there's a lot of money in those areas, those west suburban areas. So what that did is it poured a lot of people who wanted to play basketball there. They poured money into training and development. So you started seeing more gyms pop up. You started seeing more trainers pop up. And I'll tell you this straight up. I think I mentioned this before, but Minnesota is widely considered the best basketball state for girls prospects at the Division I level. We won't have, a bunch of Paige Beckers like high-level talent, but you're going to have deep, deep, deep classes full of Division I talents. Like the top 30 kids in any class can go Division I. I mean, that's like unheard of. So really, it's like a lot of money got poured into it. We got lucky with the Minnesota Lynx going on their run with Sylvia Fowles, Simone Augustus, et cetera. Then we had Paige come on. So like a lot of things just came together in Minnesota, but across the nation, everything just got better. And so what you see is now, keep your eye on these kinds of things. Overtime Elite is now launching something for the girls this next summer. Overtime Elite was launched a couple years ago for men who wanted to play in the NBA, just kind of bypass the NCAA system. So you're going to see a lot of opportunities and resources that were poured into the guys are being poured into the girls, and rightfully so. These games are just flat out fun to watch.
Dyami, you are the best. You started your appearance with, we need to put you on payroll. We might, because Dave and I are always trying probably too hard to tie the hockey crowd and the basketball crowd together. You just did it. We appreciate it, and I love any time that I can say I'll see you later today, and that's the case this afternoon. Pointers and Saints at the Rife. Women's basketball tips off at 3. I will see you then. You're the best. I appreciate your time.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. That's our guy, Mr. Community Impact, Dyami Starks. Hour number 1 is done. What a way to finish it. Hour number 2 is going to be very Viking-centric. We hope we entertain you, because Tatum Everett of the Vikings Entertainment Network is next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.